and welcome to episode 70 of the Star Bros podcast. 70.
It's getting up there.
It is.
We're getting old, man. We're aging with this thing.
We are. It's aging us a little bit, but we're still having a good time.
We are, yeah. It's always good to come back and talk Star Wars with you, buddy.
It is. It is. And I'm joined by my bro host, Ben Skywalker.
And that over there on my right side. Oh, I can't do that. It's opposite. Okay. On my left side.
Yes. Is who?
Is Jan Solo.
Thank you. And that only works if you're watching it on the Broaxium YouTube channel. For those of you who are listening to the podcast, we will do our best to explain all of our visual jokes as well.
And apparently, as I just learned, if I tilt my head to the left to the right, then my head actually goes left. So that's all you missed there.
Yep.
Tune into the Broaxium channel if you want to see more.
Yeah. What a plug. Oh my goodness. And speaking of, oh my goodness, I don't even know where to start episode 70 because we're recording just after the second day of Star Wars Celebration. And we are part of the hashtag CouchCon crew because we're not in London, as you can probably tell. Ben's visa was denied because of some legal trouble that he's having.
Oh, man, why'd you have to tell everybody?
We're just kidding.
I just stole a baguette, nothing more. Come on, people.
Baguette.
Baguette. We're going to be talking about a lot of French on this podcast today, just to be warned.
I'm just kidding. I just got a fax from one of Ben's lawyers, and so we're going to edit that out. But in all seriousness, we are not in London, but we have been following along closely.
Wait, which lawyer?
I don't know. One of the ones that
Bombardier.
One of the ones who seems very aggressive, and so I'm going to back off. But before we get into that, how are you doing as you take a sip of your bubbly?
Of my buble, I am doing well. I have been enjoying CouchCon. What is that? What was the hashtag? CouchCon, right?
CouchCon. Yeah. For all of us watching Star Wars Celebration from home, it might be your couch, it might be your hot tub, it might be wherever you are.
Yeah.
Just don't do it while you're driving. That's crazy.
No, please don't. But I've been enjoying it. There's been a lot to digest. There's been a lot of news and a lot of fun things to get excited about over the next year plus. We got some announcements that I think carry all the way out to 2027 in this case, right? With some of the movies that they announced, maybe even further. So lots to talk about, and we'll get to that in just a second. But how are you doing, man? Oh, wait. Can I say one more thing about how I'm doing?
Sure.
I want to do a not shameless. No, because I didn't do anything with this. I want to plug Dungeons and Dragons because I watched that movie on Thursday.
Oh.
And I was surprised by how good it was.
Dude, I heard it was good. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
I had no intentions of seeing it. I had no real skin in the game, but I had a buddy from my church call and say, or text and say, "Hey, do you want to go?" And I looked, I'm like, "Yeah, I can make that, sure." So I went, no expectations, and I was thoroughly enjoying myself watching that. It was just funny and charming and witty and really worked for me. So anyway, I'm gonna plug a non-Star Wars franchise for just a second.
Wow. But hey, that's in our wheelhouse. Like we're pretty nerdy, and but you know what else is really cool about that? It makes me feel like movies are back. Like we had a stretch there where there just wasn't new stuff coming out, or it was very limited. And the fact that you get to go to the theater and be pleasantly surprised by something you were not planning to see suggests to me that, like, hey, Hollywood's back. They're cranking out cool movies, and it's just a nice feeling after the zombie apocalypse of the coronavirus.
It's funny you say that because at the beginning of the movie, for me at least, and I don't know if this is different depending on the theater you go and see it, see it with, but it was in AMC, and I think AMC had something about like welcome back to the movies and thank you for being here, like very, very much trying to pump up like come to the movie theater. Like this is where part of it was like their 100th anniversary or something, and so it was attached to whole event that they're trying to celebrate. But but at the same time, they had a introduction to the movie by the cast, Chris Pine and
really?
Grant. all of them and Michelle Rodriguez were did this whole thing at the beginning where they're like, "Hey, thank you for being," and it was a little overt, like, "No, you should watch it where we intend you to watch it in the theater."
Mm.
Very much like pushing, "Come back to the theater." So, which is interesting because we're all like, "Yeah, we're already here. You don't need to tell us."
Yeah.
But maybe
I've
we
never
can
seen
make it
anything like
interesting.
that.
It was different, very
Hmm.
different. And by the way, there were only like this is the second week it's out. There were only like 3 other groups in the theater. So it was all to ourselves.
Wow. Okay. Well,
So
that doesn't sound great, but
so I think they've got some work to do to get people back is what I'm saying.
I think you're absolutely right, and I think even I think during the pandemic, like piracy went up and all that stuff. So people are finding ways to watch
Yeah.
movies that aren't the intended way. But dude, I agree. I think there's just something special about being in the theater,
Yeah.
about the big screen, the big sound system, going with friends, all that stuff. So I'm glad that you enjoyed that, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that and maybe this is a good segue. Star Wars is coming back to the theater.
It is coming back. So why don't we just get to all the news from the past couple days?
Well,
There's some more beyond that, but like just the last 2 days, we got enough.
we'll do our best. And just to be clear, this is not a full rundown of everything that you might have missed when you stepped away from the couch for a few minutes. There's plenty of good resources out there to get every little detail. We're going to hit as much as we can. We're going to talk about the ones that we're most excited about.
Yep.
But we're probably going to miss a thing or two. And our goal is not to be complete. It is to be high quality.
Yeah, exactly. But with that, let's just give it our
Yes.
best shot
Yes.
and get to the first segment. News
Okay.
from across the galaxy.
Whoop.
Oh,
Mean
that poor
business
dude.
today.
Um, so I'm just gonna run through a list
Okay.
of all the things that I heard.
Okay.
And then do you want to just fill in any blanks? Anything
Sure.
that I miss?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Can I stop you and react to stuff?
Let's just save all the reactions for the end.
Okay. No, I'm gonna go make a sandwich. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, that might be a good idea actually, because there's a lot. Um, okay, Ahsoka was the biggest thing. We got an Ahsoka teaser trailer.
Let me
Um,
stop you right there. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
we have finally confirmed that Mary Elizabeth Winstead, the I think girlfriend, fiance, wife, I can't remember, to Ewan McGregor, the one that plays
No
um,
kidding.
our beloved Obi-Wan.
Hmm.
Um, she is going to be Hera, which is awesome. We got the Ghost, we got Chopper, we got our first look at Sabine, we got the back of the head of Thrawn, which is really exciting. And then
Hmm.
the next day, we got actual confirmation that Lars Mikkelsen will be returning,
Hmm.
who did the voice of Thrawn. He will be actually acting in live action now as
Hmm.
Thrawn. Everyone is very excited about. Um, Kevin, I think is it Kiner or is it Kinnear?
I think it's
Um,
Kiner.
I can't remember. He's going to do the score, and the directors are Dave Filoni, Steph Green, Peter Ramsey, Jennifer Getzinger, Gita Patel, and Rick Famuyiwa. I always have to say his name twice because I think I get it wrong.
I
That
think
was
that's
a
right.
lot just right there with
Yeah.
Ahsoka.
Yeah.
We're not even scratching the surface. Dave Filoni announced season 2, Tales of the Jedi. We're
Mm.
getting it again. We had a lot on the Acolyte. We got confirmation Vernestra Rowe is going to be in it, played by Rebecca Henderson. What else? I haven't even gotten to the movies yet. The High Republic. We're getting Phase 3.
Mm.
Okay, and I think the whole phase is called Trials of the Jedi, and it starts in fall of 2023. And the 3 adult books in that series are Eye of Darkness. That's going to be written by George Mann and come out in November 23. Temptation of the Force by Tessa Gratton in the summer of 24. And then finishing it off with Trials of the Jedi by Charles Soule
Oh.
in spring of 25.
Oh.
So if you like the High
Man.
Republic, buckle up. We're going to get a lot more of it.
Oh my goodness. I can't keep up, dude.
I know. Falling behind. And then all of that, I think there was more. Skeleton Crew had some. We got the directors for that. And there are some big names with that. John Watts is one who's attached to Spider-Man. Lee Isaac Chung, who did an episode of Mandalorian. Bryce
Cool.
Dallas Howard.
Yep.
Daniels. It's a pair of directors that did the Everything Everywhere All at Once, which I still haven't seen, but it won an Oscar. Best Picture, I think, right?
Mhm.
David Lowery, Jake Shire were the other ones. So we got the directors and a little bit of tidbits on them, and then the movies. Do you want to
Mm.
say what the movies are about? Because I'm
Yeah,
tired.
and yeah, catch your breath there. Oh my goodness. So one of the things that was interesting about the announcement of the movies was the fact that Celebration is in London. They're 5 hours ahead, I think. So
Mhm.
think of all the people, like if you're in the on the West Coast in the US, you woke up to the news that there are 3 new Star Wars movies coming out. Unless maybe you're one of those people who set your alarm clock and got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, because they basically opened Celebration by announcing these movies.
Yeah, yeah, true.
We don't have titles, we don't have a ton of information, but we sort of know where they land on the timeline.
Right.
I'll start with the one that feels most certain and feels like it's probably going to come out first, and that is a movie that brings back Rey, brings back Daisy Ridley, who they paraded out on stage, which you and I were talking about. Like, that makes it feel pretty real
Mhm.
that they've got her, they've got her commitment. That takes place 15 years after the sequel trilogy, and it feels like it's going to be sort of a rebuilding phase for the Jedi, where perhaps Rey is going to take the training that she's had and the experiences that she's had, and she's going to rebuild some version of the Jedi. I guess using the texts that she got from Luke and all that stuff. So that feels like it's probably the nearest one to us actually like packing up and driving over and sitting in the movie theater and watching a Star Wars movie. I think it's going to be the Rey rebuilds the Jedi movie.
I like how you
Um,
said packing up, like you have to bring a bunch of stuff with you.
I sneak in some goobers when I go in.
Oh,
No,
I
I
didn't know
don't.
they sell them outside the theaters.
They don't. That's the only place in the world you can get them.
You have to get them on the black market, is what you're telling me.
Yeah. All right, the next one that a lot of people are excited about is Dave Filoni is getting his own Star Wars movie.
Yes, he is.
Dave Filoni, one of the few proud Pennsylvanians who lives in the Star Wars universe. Dave Filoni is getting a movie that is going to take place between episodes 6 and 7.
The New Republic era,
New
right?
Republic era.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah. Um, and then we're going to go way back in time. So they showed this really interesting visual where it was like the timeline of the big kind of eras within the Star Wars universe. And so you have like, the High Republic is now on there and so on. More recently, we got the movies of the First Order era, and now they're adding movies that are on both ends. So the Rey story is going to take place 15 years after the sequel trilogy. So that's on the far end. And then they're going to have a movie that comes out that's all the way on the other end, which takes place 25,000 years before the Star Wars that we know. So this is basically the old Republic that
Yep.
that
The
that people.
dawn. No, it's the dawn of the Jedi. I think it's even before the Old Republic on
You're
that
right.
timeline.
You're right. So I think the next spot in the timeline is the Old Republic. So this is the dawn of the Jedi, and they use these little icons to visually describe each era. And this one was the same. Did you catch this, by the way?
What's
The
that?
icon was the same imagery
Yes,
that is on the ground in
in the temple on Octo.
on Octo. Yep.
Octo.
Octu. So it's sort of like the balanced, dark side, light side figure of a person sitting. So that this is going to go way back to the very, very, very beginning. James Mangold is going to
Mhm.
direct that one. And here's a fun trivia question for you. What, I guess, honor or distinguishing kind of resume builder will James Mangold have after he directs this movie?
Uh,
He's gonna join a very elite and small club.
Having directed both an Indiana Jones and a Star Wars.
That's right.
Yeah, because he's got the next one coming out, the Dial of Destiny, right?
Yes. So he's
Yeah.
going to join the Steven Spielberg George Lucas club as being one of the only people in the world to have directed something from both
I,
franchises.
okay. I mean, I don't want to burst any bubbles, but I have to
What?
do it. once it comes out, then we'll be able to count them in that
Right.
club.
Right.
We've had a lot of announcements and haven't happened, so
Yeah.
let's just make sure they happen first.
Yeah. Totally fair. Which, by the
That's
way,
such a downer.
I felt a little bit bad for the Indiana Jones folks because they were trying to hype that up at Celebration, and
Uh-huh.
people were like, "Cool, Star
Onto
Wars,
the
get back
Star
to Star
Wars.
Wars."
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
People sort of politely listened to it, but they were like, "Yeah, that's fine, but like, give us more Star Wars." Like people
Yeah.
are sort of gluttonous at Celebration. It's like an
Yeah.
all-you-can-eat buffet of Star Wars, and they're just like, "I'm not full yet. I'm going back for the fourth plate."
I mean, it is look, it is the more successful of the Lucasfilm, uh, you know, franchises.
Yeah,
I was trying to think of the right word because,
but
like,
I
Lucasfilm
mean,
was own its own franchise by itself.
you're kind of splitting hairs though, because I feel like Indiana Jones is it's iconic. Like people
Oh,
do
yeah.
love that. It just so
Yes.
happens that the guy who made that also made Star Wars, and when you sort of hold them up next to each other, it's like, okay, yeah, Star Wars is bigger, but like Indiana Jones is still pretty huge.
It's still pretty big all by itself. Exactly. Yeah, it's not to downplay it at all. But, hey, one other thing I wanted to mention real quick about one of those movies, and going back to the Daisy Ridley for a second,
Hmm.
the other thing that'll be interesting about that one is it's going to be, and I hope I get her name right, it's gonna be directed by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy,
Yes.
who I think just recently directed some Miss Marvel episodes from,
Oh,
the
cool.
Marvel franchise. Um and so, yeah, it is the first woman and person of color that will be directing a Star Wars movie, which is
That's super
also
cool.
exciting all by itself.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's a there's a lot to be excited about just by looking at uh just by looking at everything that they announced, that we're going to get 3 new movies. But
Hmm.
what stands out to you? What was the most exciting to see or hear about from the past few days?
You mean in general
In general, yeah.
of
I mean,
all
we
the
got
news?
Ahsoka, we've got Skeleton
Oh
Crew, we got
man.
a ton of Acolyte coverage. There was just a ton. The movies. What really got you excited the most?
Maybe one very near term thing, and I'm most excited for the new content, but we sort of skipped over this one. Return of the Jedi is coming back to movie theaters on
Yeah,
April 28th to celebrate the 40th anniversary, and I can't wait to see it in the movie theater. Um, and then we're going to be doing a Return of the Jedi episode in just in a couple episodes from now, right?
yeah, yeah. To
So
celebrate that 40th year anniversary.
yeah, and we got to go see it. We got to go have that experience and get some popcorn and watch that on the big screen because I've never seen it on the big screen.
Yeah, same.
So that'll be super cool. I'm most excited generally. I'm most excited for movies, and I think
Because it's
I'm
gonna do what you always want, which is Star Wars in December,
Star
attached to
Wars.
Christmas.
Yeah, Star Wars in December. By the way, somebody, I sent this to you and our bro host Chris Ryan's. Somebody posted a picture of they went on Disney Plus and they pulled up the Ahsoka trailer, and it said coming December 29th, the year 3000. So hang on to your hats, everybody. It's going to be a bumpy ride between now and then. I think I'm most
Uh,
excited for, in concept, I'm most excited for the James Mangold movie. I,
okay.
I I think it's such a cool era to go back and create and explore and see the origin of all of the stuff that's foundational to the story that we know and love now. I think that'll be super cool. So I think that's the movie I'm most excited for. The TV show I'm most excited for is definitely Ahsoka, although everything else sounds great. And by the way, we were talking about how we got little tidbits from the conversations between Kathleen Kennedy and some other people who
Yeah,
are quote unquote insiders. And another thing that she mentioned was they're talking to Donald Glover. The Lando series is still on the table, and he is obviously the guy to play Lando.
yeah,
Should that actually transpire? So that could be really cool too. But and there's other stuff I'm hearing about the shows like Skeleton Crew. Thought it was
yeah.
a kids show. Kathleen Kennedy said, "Well, it's got kids in it. Not necessarily a
No, I
kids
think
show
she
though."
compared it more to the Goonies,
Yeah.
which if
So
that's the case, like that's not one that's made just for kid audiences.
No.
It's definitely made for more mature kid audiences.
Yeah, so some interesting like plot twists and details in there, but I think I'm most excited for the movies. If the Ray one is the first one, which I suspect it will be based on just a couple of context clues, like parading
Yeah.
Daisy Ridley out there, I'm all for it. But
Is that the one too that the Peaky Blinders writer, I'm forgetting his name now, was attached to? Like, he's still
oh, maybe
confirmed as attached to one of them, and I thought it was that one.
you might be
Um,
right.
so it sounds like it's the furthest along in pre-production too.
Yeah.
So it has a name attached to it, not just a director, but an the title actor
Hmm.
is attached to it as well, in Daisy Ridley, and yeah, like, they make it a little bit more real with things like that. The other things that help make the other 2 real, I think, 1, Dave Filoni,
Yeah.
the guy already works there.
Yeah.
He's already part of Lucasfilm. That movie's gonna happen.
And
All the right ingredients to make it happen are there.
yeah. And I think I always sort of view Dave Filoni as being George Lucas's heir apparent. Like it just seems like they're on the same wavelength. So it'd be really interesting to
Yeah,
see what he will do when you give him 2+ hours of big screen time to create. Um, excited for that. Could be super cool.
and they've built this as, like, the not the wrapping up, but, like, bringing all the characters in the Mandoverse,
Yeah.
which is, I think, the term that they've been using. So that would be Boba Fett, the Book of Boba Fett,
Hmm.
oh, Ahsoka, The Mandalorian,
The
obviously,
Mandalorian series. Yeah.
bringing all of that into a live action movie.
Yeah.
And they talked about how, like, they've been preparing Dave for this. Like, they've been giving him more and more experiences with live action, and he's got his own series that he's been producing lately, Ahsoka, that's about to make it, m- you know, make its way into uh, Disney Plus, into our homes.
Yep.
So, yeah,
Year
there's a lot
3000.
in the year 2000. Yeah, we got a little bit to wait. Um, but yeah, like, this seems like just the culmination of all the experiences they've been giving him to train him
Yeah.
up for this moment. So that's really exciting, and more for Dave to add that to his resume.
Yeah. And yeah, and the training thing is really interesting. Like remember he was on set at
Yeah,
The Last Jedi
yeah,
and was kind of getting to see how a feature film is made on location somewhere out in the world and all that good stuff. And so he's been, I think, very deliberately brought up to be ready for an opportunity like this.
yeah, totally.
Super cool. What are you most excited for?
Um, I mean, I really liked all the Ahsoka stuff that we got, and I was
Hmm.
really excited by the fact that we had Mary Elizabeth Winstead confirmed as Hera. That
Hmm.
to me is just a smart casting.
Yeah.
And there were rumors about it for a few months, and with all rumors, I just shove them to the side until they're confirmed. And so, it was just exciting to see her with Chopper, who looks great in live
Chopper
action,
looks
doing
great.
his normal fish shaking antics.
Droids are so much easier to bring into live action than
Yeah,
people. The fans have strong opinions about, oh, that person doesn't look like whoever. The guy playing Thrawn, Lars
yeah,
Mikkelsen.
yeah.
There
Well,
were a lot of
that's
well, he did the
uh,
voice, and so it's like he's the guy. But a lot of people had different opinions about. I want Benedict Cumberbatch. That was one of the ones that I would have really liked, and so on.
I would, yeah, but like he specifically said, I'm not interested. So
Fair enough. But the droids are pretty easy to bring into the real world.
yeah, well, I was gonna
But he
say
did
next.
look great. I'm not trying to downplay it.
No. Yeah, no, that's a very good point, because they can usually design that a little bit easier, right?
Hmm.
But you talked about Lars Mikkelsen, like his voice acting is fantastic for
Hmm.
Thrawn. Uh, and he's so good. And I've talked about this before, but in Sherlock, he is so good
I got to go back and watch that.
as the bad guy in that his episode. He's just, you just hate him. And he's a great live action actor. So the fact that they're bringing him into this, to me, um, it was just a no-brainer.
Mm,
And I think there was somebody who did this online. When they showed the back of his head, I looked at it, I was like, those look like his ears. That looks like him, because they have
yeah,
shots in Sherlock of the back of his head, and I'm pretty sure I've seen the back of that head before.
yeah. And
So I did the same thing.
there were people who took pictures of the back of Lars Mikkelsen's head and overlaid them on the back of Thrawn's head. But
Yes, they did.
he's got distinctive ears. They stick out a little bit, and that's
Yes,
why I thought, oh my gosh, it's Martin Short.
but but that's the other thing. I know you were really excited about that one, and I was bursting your bubble. I was like, I'm not as excited. I want him to be Lars Mikkelsen, but
I know,
I'll let
but
you have your moment.
thank you. I appreciate it very much.
I did pop it a little, and I'm sorry for that.
That's okay.
I was having a good laugh. But no, Lars Mikkelsen is also a really tall actor,
Uh-huh.
and so I
Martin
mean,
Short's like
Thrawn,
5'1".
like he lives up to his name.
Oh,
Sorry, I'm not as funny as Martin Short, but I'm trying.
he's a funny guy. He's one of my favorites.
But he's just got that presence, and Thrawn has that kind of presence. So I just
Yeah.
feel like he matches everything that you expect out of him. So
Cool.
anyway, that's all the Ahsoka stuff, and then I think the Acolyte, all the content, they didn't really give us any content, but all the
Yeah.
coverage they gave it
I was gonna
got
say,
me
yeah.
really excited for that series too.
Yeah. Well, we got little snippets. We got little details. Like we know that we're gonna get a. So for anybody uninitiated at this point, this one goes back to the High Republic era,
Yep.
which we are now kind of High Republic rich with comic books and books, and the books have been turned into sort of audio dramas, and now we're going to get into this TV show, and we know that there's going to be a Wookiee Jedi on the
A
Acolyte.
Wookiee Jedi.
A Wookiee Jedi.
Say that again.
A
They
Wookiee
were just saying it
Jedi.
over and over in the Celebration Live
Yeah,
stream. If you saw that,
we're excited about it.
yeah,
and he's played by Jonas, or is it Jonas? Jonas. I should, of all
it's
all
Swedish.
people, I should get that right.
Of all people, seriously.
Jonas Suamoto?
I think so. Suotomo. Yeah, I think, yeah.
Who played Chewbacca in Rogue One, and played college basketball at Penn State.
Yes, he did. He's another Pennsylvania connection.
Yeah. What did I say? I forgot to say Solo. That's the important one. Oh my gosh. But so he's reprising his role as a Wookiee. This time he gets a lightsaber. Probably couldn't be any happier.
Oh yeah.
So
Who
we're
doesn't
getting
say no to taking a lightsaber?
Yeah. You know what I was thinking about? Like, you hear the stories about Samuel L. Jackson, and when he got to set, I guess the prop folks came over to him and they're like, "You pick which lightsaber feels most like this character's lightsaber." I wonder if he gets that moment too, or like if all the new Jedi get that. Can you imagine that moment when they open up the box? And
that'd be cool. I mean, I would love George Lucas just to kind of come over and hand me a lightsaber. I'll just say, whatever you have in there, I'll take it. Thanks, George Lucas, for taking the time out of your day to do that. You know, like that's special right there.
Like, oh my gosh, you got into the whole thing there. You pictured the whole fantasy moment.
I did.
You were so polite to him too.
I did. Thank you, George. I mean, that right there was one exciting aspect of it, but just seeing all the actors come together and talk about it, and hearing what Leslie Headland was saying too, who's going to be the showrunner for it, and what she's been putting together. I think they talked about how it's the Acolyte, so it's going to be from the perspectives of the baddies of
the baddies.
The baddies. I know I'm getting really technical in my terms now. Antagonist. But yeah, like it just sounds different. It sounds like she's poured her heart and soul into this, and all the actors have. Manny Jacinto, my little friend right here from a TV series I talk about all the time, The Good Place. He was there and he looked great, and they were saying "Oh dip" and reminding him of his roots. So I enjoyed it quite a bit.
Bortles.
He's wearing that jersey in that.
I love it.
For those listening at home, I just showed a Funko Pop of Jason Mendoza from The Good Place. There you go.
Love it. Which is another terrific series. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
You should watch it. Yeah. So anyway, I mean, there's so much to be excited about here. Tons announced. Let us know, listeners, what you liked, what you're excited about.
Please.
We'll be covering it all as it starts to come out. But any other news that happened that we should highlight?
No, I mean, not that there's not enough there, but I did want to ask you: was there anything that you were expecting to see or hear that we did not get? And by the way,
That's a
we're
good
recording this
question.
in the middle of Celebration,
Well,
so
near the end, all the big news has come out.
yeah,
Uh, so, no, I guess maybe some updates would have been nice on some of the movies that I know that we talked about, like Taika's. I
yeah.
kind
So,
of expected something on Taika's.
something a little bit more tangible than
Yeah,
yeah, it's still happening. Okay, that's fair.
yeah, that was probably it. But I mean, we just got we continue to get everything that we know is coming about uh or on Disney Plus. You
Yeah,
know, all the series that we're getting,
yep,
and it's nice that those are all continuing to come in a flourish. Like we're getting all of these series, one's one or two a year, which is great.
yeah.
So I'm very grateful.
Yeah,
Um,
me too. Me too. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be in any way, but I think the one thing that I think people have been talking about for a long time, not seriously, but sort of anticipating, is when's there going to be a Mandalorian video game?
ooh, yeah, that's a good point.
Like people want it, people would play it like crazy.
And
Um,
there really wasn't much on the video game front, from what I remember, other than just promoting Jedi Survivor.
they all their eggs are in that basket right now. I think
Yeah,
they're just really pushing that hard. Like I mentioned in our last episode, like in the middle of New York City, where I can't imagine a much more expensive billboard. There's a giant Jedi
yeah,
Survivor billboard. There's probably 20 of them in New York City. Um, they're going pretty hard with that. I don't think they want to muddy the waters by releasing other titles at the same time, but people since the first season of The Mandalorian, people are like, this would be a great video game.
yeah,
How like how do I get to be this character? Whether it's current platform or it's some VR game or whatever, like when's that coming out? And I don't think it is. I don't think we're gonna get one.
not
M- m-
anytime soon.
Not anytime soon. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe at some point. I don't know. Maybe Lego will come in and do something, but I would love them to just do it as like an expansion of the game they just released, though. That would be great.
That would be really cool. I
You can
could
get the
see it.
characters in that.
I could see it happening in Lego form before anything else, but
Yeah.
I digress.
But that's a good one to say, like, hey, didn't hear anything about that. But look, we're living in the golden age of Star Wars where we just got the announcement of 3 movies and we got more details on 3 or 4 other series that are coming to Disney Plus. We have a lot to be grateful for, not to mention the books with the High Republic.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's been a lot, and I'm sure there's other news that we just haven't even, hasn't even made the big airwaves yet because
right.
uh, we're just getting spoiled by all these other pieces of news.
Totally,
So,
totally. And by no means am I complaining. But
oh,
that's just one of the things that people speculated about for a few years that folks were
true.
wondering.
And there is one other video game. It's a video game that shall not be named because it's under a lot of fire right now. But there is another video game that's supposed to
Oh
be
yeah.
coming out at some point. I don't
I
think we heard any news on that.
no, I always just forget that exists.
Yeah, I
Honestly.
think a lot of people did. They're yeah. Anyway, let's not go there. Um, that's all the news. I mean, in all of that, we got the finale to the Bad Batch,
Yep.
and we'll just brush over that for right now because uh,
We're gonna do
there's
a
a
whole
lot of
episode.
things we're gonna do an episode on that, and there's just I'm still processing. Let's just say that. Uh, but let's get to the 2 episodes that also came out for the Mandalorian the past
Yes.
few weeks.
Yes.
What is that section of our podcast
I
called?
think it's called More to the Story.
Ba-da-dum.
And what do we get? We got chapters 21 and 22 entitled The Pirate and Guns for Hire.
Who was the pirate directed by? I forgot to write that down in my notes. Do you remember?
It was directed by Jack Black.
No, it wasn't.
It wasn't. I didn't write it down.
I'll have to
Uh,
look. But the other one was Bryce Dallas Howard, the Guns for
right,
Hire.
right.
Let's start with the pirate.
Yes.
Uh, a lot happened in this one.
Yeah.
It was action packed. That's the
hmm
best word for it. What word do you have to describe it other than that?
I rewatched the episode yesterday, and that's the first thing that came to mind. It was like an action movie. I mean, it's the Mandalorians kind of outgunned in terms of ship firepower, but trying to reclaim a city that's been taken over by pirates, and that giant pirate corsair kind of floating
Mhm.
over Navarro, blowing up. It's an action movie in
It
in short form.
it really is. And I'll able to get to the director. So Peter Ramsey,
Peter Ramsey.
who is one of these directors I also mentioned going to Ahsoka now. So you see a
Okay.
lot of crossover, don't you?
Oh yeah, for
Um,
sure.
and I think that was his debut to Star Wars and to The Mandalorian. So
Okay.
fantastic job in my book.
Yeah.
Because I thought of the action in this was very similar to how I felt. Not it wasn't similar to the action, but it was similar to how I felt watching the Prison Break in Andor.
Oh, good one.
I
Okay.
was just on the edge of my seat the whole time, and I'm
Yeah.
not always that way with action movies, especially as like it's a genre that we've been exploring for years. It's always been a
Yeah.
favorite genre of mine, and so I feel like there's a lot
Action
of seen
movies?
that, been there, done that. Yeah,
Our favorite genre of yours? What are some of your favorite action movies?
I mean, I
And if you don't mention Seagal or Van Damme.
okay, I should be clear on what I mean by action movies. Yeah, I guess that's a good point. I'm thinking of like the Marvel movies in the past decade.
Okay.
Those are action genre.
Oh, I guess so.
What else? I'm not a Jean Paul Van Damme. I'm sorry. Terminator.
Jean-Claude.
There's some good Jean Claude. Jean Paul. Jean,
Jean-Paul Van
isn't
Damme, his brother.
isn't Jean Paul? Who is that from? Is that Parks and Rec or no?
That's Jean Ralphio.
That's Jean Ralphio. Oh man, I don't know. Let's just forget I said all that.
Okay. Anyway, back to Navarro. But so the
Take it away.
action.
I'm at a
Yeah.
loss for words now.
So okay, so maybe just to diverge from that a little bit. When I rewatched it, what stood out to me more the second time around, first time around was definitely like, oh man, I'm caught up in this exciting action. Explosions, the dogfights with with Mando's ship and the decoys and just how crafty the Mandalorians had to be to retake Navarre. Like totally caught up in that.
I like the Born Identity.
Okay, that's an action movie. I'll give you that. Is that what
Sorry.
you've been thinking about the whole time I've been
Oh
yapping
yeah, I'm
here?
not listening to you. I'm thinking
Okay.
about all the other action movies I like.
All right. Well, just so you know, I was just reading all your internet passwords out. Um,
Okay.
so what stood out to me the second time around was more of like the chess pieces falling into place for the Empire and Carson Teva
Mhm.
having his suspicion that something is really up and watching him go. So one of the cameos that people weren't raving about that I thought was terrific was Tim Meadows as the Colonel.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Going to Tim Meadows' character and trying to make his pitch to him and seeing how the New Republic has become, rather than being this nimble, agile rebellion, is all of a sudden now like this just bureaucratic machine.
So let me pause and ask you a question on this one, because this is one of my discussion questions.
Okay.
How are we feeling about the New Republic this season?
Not great.
No, we're not, are we?
It feels clunky, it feels overly bureaucratic.
Yeah.
It feels under-resourced and overly bureaucratic, and it feels like it's trying to establish itself, but it's already taking itself very seriously.
Mhm.
And that's not what you want a growing galactic organization to be in the Star Wars universe. Like it
And you can see this. I think that's how they wanted us to feel, obviously, or else they
yeah,
wouldn't have given us all these scenes of the New Republic coming to. But they hinted at in previous seasons about how it's a joke, and
yeah,
and you kind of you understand that you give it the benefit of the doubt, and that's all you really can do, not being able to see it firsthand. But the pieces we see are like, yeah, they're trying, they're good people, and they're doing
yeah,
their best, right? But this season is giving us a different side of it, and it
yeah,
showed us a little bit more of the behind the scenes bureaucracy that you had mentioned, and it's not going well. I mean, this one, the colonel is talking about like there's a lot of other planets that need our help, and we got a backlog. That word backlog really threw me. I was like, ooh, like basically what you're saying is we don't have the Jedi, and we don't
yep.
have enough manpower to really fight off all these pirates or help in these ways. Like
Or
the
the
galaxy's
money,
big.
or any of the resources,
Yeah.
clearly.
Yeah, and they're just you feel for them. They're trying the best they can with what they have, the resources they have. But there was a little laissez-faire, blase-faire attitude
A
about it.
blasé.
Yeah, I know. I told you we were going very French this episode.
Oh la la.
Sacre bleu. Uh, how stereotypical can we get in just the next 5 seconds? But it does feel a little like they just don't care,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I think another one of the behind the scenes things that we see a little bit is just sort of the public perception of the New Republic.
Mm.
Like I'm thinking of when Dr. Pershing gives his speech, and then afterwards he's talking to people who were in attendance for his speech, and they're kind of like, I forget what the one guy says, but the gist of it is, New Republic, Empire, whatever. And it's like, well, no, they're really different. But I guess if you're just a regular citizen on the ground, on some sub level of Coruscant, you're probably like, meet the new boss, same as the old boss, whatever.
And part of the reason I think it feels a little bit like same old is because it is.
Yeah.
Most of the people that are running it are either were the Empire before,
Yeah.
and now they're part of the amnesty program. They've been, reintroduced to society in a reformed manner. There's some kind of like feel good about it, but you don't feel good about it too.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the people in charge are the ones that kind of got there. Like most of them were just fighters. They were fighters of the resistance, and now they're being told, okay, you're in leadership now because I guess we won. And they've never had to do that before.
And by the way, it's a desk job, and some droid is going to keep bringing you endless files for you to work on, and so on. So
even the colonel, that's all he was dealing with. He was just getting files after file after file. Like,
yeah, right.
It doesn't look great.
It doesn't look great, but to me, this episode, the second time around, the things that stood out were that about the New Republic, the chess pieces sort of moving around for the Empire, and characters starting to pick up on that, but not being able to entirely raise the alarm, and the ascendancy, I guess, of Bo-Katan and the Mandalorians kind of coming back together. But I feel like the last minute of this episode is massive, and I sort of the first time I watched it, I was like, oh yeah, that's nuts.
Oh, well, we'll talk about that in great detail, because that's really where the episode, the meat of the episode was.
Yes.
Is at the end, but
like all the explosions and the crashing and the shooting and whatever, pew pew, whatever. Like I kind of was still coming down from that the first time I watched the episode. So this one was a good one to rewatch and really pick apart a bit.
But it was really well done in how they built up to it.
It was so great. It was so great.
You mentioned we'll get back to some of the cameos in a second, but you mentioned Captain Teva that was kind of going around and trying to figure out what's going on.
Yes.
He feels like there's more at work here, and he wants to figure it out. But at the same time, he's worried about Navarro. He's a very he's a very good, I don't know how else to say this. He's just a good guy. Like,
his heart is in the right place.
He can't let go of Navarro's needs, despite them not being a member planet.
Yeah.
So he goes and continues to help and finds the Mandalorian, and he tells them, like, hey, I'm sorry I came and busted you guys at your covert, and that you'll have to move, but for what it's worth, I won't tell. So he's just an honorable guy.
Yeah. And I believe him when he says that.
Well, and I guess we'll find out it doesn't matter anymore, because they're going to come out in the open. So oh well,
pretty cool.
But so I thought that was cool. But even just that speech around the fire, where the Mandalorian is holding the armorer's hammer, and making that speech.
Have we seen something like that before? I didn't know that different people could wield the hammer.
I feel like but okay, well, I don't think we've seen it in Star Wars, but I think we've seen that in other places before. It's like you have the floor, right?
Yeah,
and you get your moment to speak. You
at camp they call that the talking stick.
Yeah, exactly. It's the
they
talking
would say,
stick.
Ben, when you hold the talking stick, you can talk. Please listen to your bro host. That's what they would say.
We need a talking stick amongst us, don't we?
Sometimes.
You just want a stick to be able to hit me with. That's all.
I would love that.
Why am I not surprised? Anyway, Don't hit me with the stick that he's holding, because that, as we saw later in that episode, thing can do some makes make some
Yeah,
pain rain.
a Trandoshan met his maker thanks
It
to
does
that talking stick.
does Jean Claude Van Damme?
Oui.
He's not French.
No,
he's he's Dutch.
he's Belgian.
Exactly. He's Belgian, but Van Damme is definitely Dutch.
Is it?
Yeah, I mean Jean Claude is French, but maybe that's the funny part about it. His first name is French and his last name is Dutch, and Belgian is both. Belgium has both.
Oh, wow. See what a complex and intriguing fellow he is. You
Very,
should
very
watch
much
all of
so.
his movies.
I guess I should. What am I missing? Um, what
A
was the
lot.
reason of me bringing him up? Like, does he
Well,
have a saying?
this has shifted into a Jean-Claude Van Damme podcast. No, we
He's
were just
gonna
talking
bring
about
the
the
pain.
action. We were talking about the action, stuff like that.
I
But then
no, I was asking. Does I was asking if he had some kind of phrase like bringing the pain or something like that. I'll be back kind of thing.
no, not that I know of.
Okay. Anyway, back to Star Wars.
Yep.
Um, but okay, well, what did you think of this whole campfire scene? That's what I'm getting at.
I thought it was like a good little fake out. Like you don't expect Paz to be on the side of running and saving Grief Karga. But to me, it was just another moment of the Mandalorians ascending, the unification of the Mandalorians, and that's another thing that we talked about in our prior episode, which we sort of called thanks to Rick Famuyiwa. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Famiyiwa. Yeah, I think.
So we were talking recently about like, all right, there's an episode called The Apostate. There's an episode called The Foundling. You think going into it, you know who they're talking about. They give you the episode. It's not as clear afterwards. And
so are you trying to tell me there's more than one pirate?
Not that there's more than one pirate, but there's more than one Mandalorian. And this feels like the rise of the capital M Mandalorians, and it's not Din Show anymore. And that's what Rick said at Celebration.
See, I thought where you were going with that was I like it, but that Captain Teva was being a pirate. Or he's living at least by
that
maritime law. Because
that
when he was
works.
out in space all by himself looking at the wreckage there, he was wading into maritime law at that point. So he's a pirate? I don't know. I'm stretching it now.
No, I think that works, because I think the definition of a pirate is basically somebody who is operating outside of the law and typically independently. There aren't fleets of pirate ships. There's usually just the one.
Yeah.
And that's and that's sort of I think appropriate for what Captain Tebow is doing. But no, the campfire scene I think was like a galvanizing moment for the Mandalorians, for them to come together. And I think it's one of those scenes where like in other movies, other media, when you win over the guy who is really hard to win over, it feels like something starts to tip, and it starts to go in a certain direction.
Honestly, that's what I really like about this moment, and that's why I focused on it, was because it just proves that there's just no throwaway episode in any of these series. Even if you go back to
that's funny. The people on Twitter would rake you over the coals for saying that. Because every episode that comes out, somebody goes, filler.
That's not true. I mean, this episode proves it. The last episode.
Don't get angry at me.
I'm not getting angry at you. I'm just getting worked up, man. The last episode, The Foundling, like that can't be a throwaway anymore, because this is what gets Paz on the side of the Paz Vizsla on the side of Mandalorian to then go and engage in this battle. Everyone was saying that about episode 1, like, oh, this is just setting the chessboard up. I'm like, yeah, and look how important that is. We had to go back and get Gorian Shard and make it so that he just wasn't this random guy we introduced for merchandise purposes. I mean, Funko Pops. Who's not going to get a Funko Pop with that green?
I know. Face? So, what do you think? What do you think his head looks like? By the way,
as a Funko Pop?
No, just Gorian Shard. What would you compare it to?
Seaweed.
I've heard seaweed. I've heard seaweed salad which you can get a sushi place.
More power to him.
Yeah.
Not for me.
Uh, no, but
No, can't do seaweed.
I think he's going to be a fun one to merchandise.
Oh, totally. But my point being, like they didn't just introduce him for that reason. Even Vane. I was going to ask you a question on that. So the not skipping ahead too much. If you want to go back to the campfire, we can. But Vane had some great lines in this, and then he breaks away at the very end from the fleet. Is this the last we've seen of Vane? Where else do we see him?
I don't think so. And I think what we're going to learn from him at one point or another is the role that Gorian Shard's crew played in whatever the Empire's doing.
Yeah.
I think they were put up to do what they did to Navarro in some way by the Empire, directly or indirectly. And I think he is the key to us learning the rest of that story.
Okay. Interesting. We've got 2 more episodes until we figure out exactly where he comes in, and maybe he comes in Ahsoka, Skeleton Crew, any of these other that we have mentioned.
That's a good point. Could be.
So, anyway, just I really ended up liking him a lot. I know he's a villainous character, but like I liked him. I thought his the actor that played him was really good, and so
I thought so too.
I'd love to see more of him. And see him play a bigger role. So I really liked his he's above you, he's below you moment of the fight. Was there anything that you really liked of the battle itself? Like that to me was one that stood out, but there are actually quite a few I wrote down. So but any that you really liked during the battle?
There's a lot of little moments. The pirates shooting at the quacking monkey lizards, yes. I thought was a fun way to make you hate them even more.
The quacking monkey lizards?
No, the pirates.
Oh, the pirates. Yes.
Because it's like, I'm allowed to be annoyed at the quacking monkey lizards, but you're not allowed to shoot at them.
That's I like that they were giving away where they were hiding. They were like helping the Mandalorians as they're like over there.
Yeah. No, I love those little guys. I love the armor scene where she takes out the big gun on the turret. That was pretty cool. It was interesting watching them fight and divide and conquer. But a little moment. So I loved, my favorite stuff was in the air attacking the Corsair, seeing Gorian Shard and his crew react like it sounds like they're on a ship, like they're out at sea. The way that they sort of talk to one another and things like that. Yeah. But a little thing that I really enjoyed was when the tide turned and they started to run the surviving pirates out of town. I love that the townspeople of Navarro, led by High Magistrate Grief Karga, were there to meet them.
Magistrate, yes.
They were there to meet them. They didn't hide in the hills until the whole thing was over. They went there and met them with their guns drawn and sort of reclaimed their city, which I really liked.
Yeah. I agree with that. I really like to when Mandalorian shows up and you had Grief Karga at the bottom, down on the ground saying they have you outnumbered 10-1. Mandalorian destroys one ship and just says, "I like those odds." Great line. It's cheesy because it is, but it doesn't come across as cheesy because of how well it's executed. Like it's a callback. Because
Carl Weathers is the man, and he delivers it in an authentic way. It doesn't feel forced.
It's more that they're telegraphing the line from forever away. Like as soon as he says they have you outnumbered 10-1, you're thinking, you know what? I know a great line that he said back in season 1 that he could say right now. Oh, look, there he said it. You see it coming. Yeah. But with how well it's executed, you don't care. It's just like that. Yep. That's how you say something like that. You put an exclamation point on it. So it was really well executed.
Dig it. Anything else from this episode, from the action or anything before maybe we start to dig into the last few minutes? I think one other thing that's worth talking about is when Captain Teva goes all the way from a Delphi base back to Coruscant, talks to the colonel, who weasels their way into that conversation.
Oh, some guy that I think we've seen in other stuff. No big deal. Zeb. Huh? Who really cares about Zeb?
No. I'm not talking about Zeb. Although that was a terrific cameo.
Kane. Kane, yeah, Elia?
Yes.
Elia? Is that what her name is?
I think Elia Kane.
Yeah.
So she somehow weasels her way in and says like, "Hey, boss, I'm going down to the. You gonna get you anything to eat?" Just sort
Yeah,
of
yeah.
kissing up and whatever,
Oldest
and
trick in the book.
he seems to be sort of not aware of that. Um, but it's interesting that she finds her way in at that time,
Oh,
and
she knew what she was doing.
she knew what she was doing. So, but what's the Empire? What's going on here? She's working for the Empire.
She's
She's
I mean,
somehow she knows the Gorian shard's going to attack Navarro. She doesn't
no,
want
I think
the
what we're just realizing, yeah, she knows how important Navarro is, and she knows that something is at play, and she's the cog in it. She's gotta, you know, she's gotta make sure that there's just let's just I think that there's a lot that she's trying to do to set up the Mandalorians, because
I think so.
if she's still working for Moff Gideon,
Hmm.
then Moff Gideon's got a bone to pick with the Mandalorians. And so she's just playing 3D chess right now,
Mm,
trying to set them all up, and she's the queen in this match, if you want to
mm.
put it that way, and Moff Gideon's the king. Like they're just trying to get them into a checkmate scenario. So I mean,
I
she
like
knows
that.
exactly what she's doing. If you had any questions about where her allegiance was at the end of the convert episode, squash any of those remaining
Yeah,
doubts. Like, she is absolutely still connected to Moff Gideon. So that's
yeah.
really what this was all about. And she plays it well. She plays it both sides really well. She's a great
She
undercover agent.
for sure, for sure. Can I mention something about Giancarlo Esposito real quick?
Yes.
I saw this today. I don't remember the actress's name, and I feel terrible. The woman who plays Dedra on
Oh, Goff. Yeah.
yeah,
It's,
yeah, yeah.
something.
Gough.
Yeah. Goff is her last name.
She ran into Giancarlo Esposito today and shared something publicly that I had not heard before. And she took a picture with him and was delighted to meet him because she said that she based Dedra on Giancarlo Esposito's character on Breaking Bad.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Interesting.
he plays sort of a villain who is not like overtly villainous, but
Hmm.
is the bad guy of the show, but is also trying to sort of be controlled and not show that too much and whatever. And so she said she sort of studied that and used that when she was playing Dedra. And then they met
Interesting.
today in London. How cool is that?
It's like I've been waiting to tell you this for a while.
Yeah,
No, I'm not basing off of your other Star Wars character and since we're in that same franchise together, I'm basing it off of another character you played. That's really cool.
really cool.
Denise Goff, by the way.
Denise,
That's why
a
it's like
French
Denise and Dedra,
name.
I know, more French. Let's just throw more out.
Is it French? I was just saying that.
I think it is actually. I was just saying it because you did it. But yeah, now
Oh,
I'm thinking about it, maybe. I don't know. Let's just move on.
Denise.
Um, I thought you were talking about a different moment, and you're talking about when you're talking about Captain Tiva and all the cameos that we got.
Yeah,
Everyone had a great field day for Zeb, and he looks good in live action. They executed
so
that
good. Oh my
really well.
gosh. Yeah,
Um,
I was really impressed.
yeah. So my question for you is this can't be just a let's show you him and be like cool, isn't that a fun cameo and move on. We're gonna get more of him, right?
I'm assuming so. I don't think you just
Yeah.
drop. I don't think you do all that work to just drop him in there for one kind of like day of. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah,
I think
I agreed.
he's got to come back in something.
I
Um,
I I mean, we didn't see him in the Ahsoka trailer, and so there's a lot of space. Like that would be the perfect place to bring him back. You bring in everybody else in the crew
yeah,
back except for him, but
yeah.
it's more interesting that he's in like a rebel fighter outfit, right? Like
He
he,
looks like he's one of the guys at a Delphi base.
he is, yeah, exactly. So really interested to see how we got there, and so I'm hopeful we'll get more of him, and I'm pretty darn sure of it because Filoni would never pass up an opportunity to bring a fan favorite character like that
Yeah,
back.
agreed.
So, but there are a lot of other cameos. Did you pick up on the other ones?
We already mentioned Tim Meadows. That was a great one.
Yep.
Who else?
We had you blink and you miss it. We had Rick Famuyiwa.
Oh, I
We
heard
had
about this, but
Deborah Chow as Sash Ketter and Trapper Wolf, Dave Filoni.
I
Uh,
didn't see Filoni. Wow.
yeah, they were all having a little powwow there at Delphi Base. Um, and Misty Roses was the bartender.
No way.
Yeah, I mean that's not a
Oh, it's
cameo, but you just find out
it,
later that she's playing it, and you're like, good,
y-
good for her.
you know when so we saw this at New York Comic Con when an actor is there doing a signing or whatever, or a comic book artist or whatever. Like behind them, they have like their pictures of like I was in this, I was in that, I was in whatever.
Hmm.
She at this point has at least 3 or 4 just from the Mandalorian series.
Yeah, yeah, because she's been a bunch of different characters because she
It's so
can.
cool
Why
because she
not?
can. Yeah, totally.
All right, let's get to the last piece of this episode before we move on, and
Fine.
that is the scene with the armor and Bo-Katan, the one that you mentioned at the beginning. You kind of forget about it because it's just so much action, explosion, pew pew, whatever.
I was
And
actually talking about a different one, but we can talk about both.
what do you mean?
I was going to talk about Moff Gideon's ship.
Oh, okay. Well, we need to talk about both. Let's
Yeah.
talk about the armor first, chronologically.
Fine.
Uh, this scene back in the sewers, back where it all started. The
Hmm.
armor is back at the forge where we saw the series take off, and is reminiscing a little bit about the forge on Mandalorian, and then she just turns to Bo and says, "Remove your helmet," and you're like,
Shock.
"What? Why?
Shock horror.
What's wrong with you?" Like, I I thought this was the way. But then she says some stuff that's really interesting, and I wrote it down.
That would have been a good episode title.
What?
I thought
What?
this was
Why?
the way.
I thought this was the way. Yeah, just that. I mean, that's kind of what we're getting at with our current title.
Yep.
Um, but she says, "Our people have strayed from the way,
Mm.
and it is not enough for a few to walk it. We
Hmm.
must walk it together, all Mandalorians." Um, and she explains that because she has walked both worlds, that she can help unite them, and that her seeing uh, the mythosaur is a sign of that.
Hmm.
So she's kind of growing up a little bit as a character. She's willing to make some sacrifices to the way
Yeah.
to say, all right, if you're the one who's going to unite us, we're better off together,
Hmm.
and there's no one better than you to do it. So
Hmm.
go, take off your helmet, prove me wrong, but like this needs to happen. And like they walk out of it and everyone in the covert is shocked, like what's going on. And there's a really subtle moment. Did you pick up on Paz Vizsla like about to explode? You can tell he's just
Yeah.
furious,
Yeah.
and he just looks over at Din and he just gives a little nod,
Mm.
like this is the way. And he and Paz in that moment probably calmed down just a little bit, but he still seems like he's pretty annoyed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what did you make of all this? This was just a lot to take in. And then
Totally unexpected too.
yeah. Yeah, was there anything else that was just exciting, shocking about this? I don't know.
Um, I think you hit all the main stuff, but I guess it wasn't as obvious to me up until this episode that the Mandalorians were going to start to rally around and behind Bo-Katan. It
Yeah.
still felt to me like it was a little bit tenuous, and um, she was still kind of learning the way, their version of the way, and so on. Um, but this sort of like thrust her forward in the sense that like the armor's behind her. The armor, I think, is probably thinking outside the box here in allowing her to take her helmet off and to unite everybody. And it's just a really interesting like mashup of like, hey, there's all these practical things that go with being a Mandalorian that we're breaking some of those things. Um, and there's another part that feels like fantastic and like fantastical and prophetic of like you know you saw this mythical beast and therefore you can take your helmet off and um people's wires almost get crossed by that like I thought Paz was going to lose his mind,
Yeah.
but total curveball, didn't see it coming, didn't expect it. um but I
I
think
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think from here on out, it's like the ascendancy of the Mandalorians leaving the covert, being out in the open, kind of reclaiming what they once had, is all kind of on her shoulders, and that's got to be a heavy burden too.
Yeah. I also think Bo-Katan and Katie Sackhoff's delivery of this was a big reason for it. But
She's so good.
She is, but, like, her reaction to the command to take her helm off, she was like, what
Mhm.
huh?"
Mhm.
Instead of just like, "Oh, thank goodness," and ripping it off, she's like, "I was
Mhm.
hoping you would say that." Which is what you almost expect her to
She was
say
bought
last
in.
season. She's bought in. She really genuinely is, and I think we've questioned, like, is she genuinely bought in? Is she all of a sudden converted to the way? And you're seeing signs that she might be. So, I don't know. I really liked her reaction there, and it wasn't just, like, "Sure, if you say so," like, she questioned it.
Yeah.
Let me just make sure, because I don't want to have to go back and get pulled underwater again like Mando did. Like,
But she didn't question the authority of the armorer. She wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, you're wrong." Um,
no, she trusted her.
she totally trusted her.
So
Which
someone that she called a zealot not too long ago.
yeah. Yeah, she's totally bought in. Um, so yeah, I think that's, an interesting twist, and I think everything is sort of on her shoulders now.
Yeah, but where did you want to go? You wanted to go to the Captain Tiva in space scene next.
I just wanted to touch on that really quickly because I thought that was a really interesting way to kind of like wrap up this episode and stuff. Because I think a lot of us have been wondering, like, okay, we've heard Moff Gideon's name a couple of times. When are we actually going to see the guy?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and here, lo and behold, he's been broken out of the ship that was transporting him. And what do we have left behind but a little bit of Beskar, a little bit of Mandalorian armor? And what's going on there? Are they trying to frame the Mandalorians
Oh
for
yeah, right.
breaking him out? Did some crazy rogue Mandalorians actually break him out? I don't think that's the case. I think it's a frame job. Um, but it's just another chess piece, another chess move that I think the Empire has made to set up the New Republic to start fighting a multi-front war. So the Mandalorians
Yeah,
are now going to be at odds with the New Republic potentially, which weakens them, which helps set up the Empire for something. Um, but it also makes me wonder, when are we going to actually see Moff Gideon? I'm assuming pretty soon.
I'm
Um,
assuming soon, and then, like, in what way, and like,
in
is he
what
gonna come
way?
back triumphantly, and he's gonna have the empire? Like, does he want to make a big announcement like that, or is he gonna come out more subtly? Like you said, I think this is more about him playing uh warlord on a three-dimensional board, and like you said, a multi-front war where he's making more the Mandalorians fight. He's isolating the Mandalorians so that
Yeah,
they're less of a threat.
yeah,
He doesn't have to fight a multi stage war. They do.
hmm
So it's just, you know, it's a warlord having a good old time.
doing what he does. Yeah,
Exactly. So my question though is Tiva gonna smell this and realize this is just, bait? But the problem is I think he's broadcasted and he's shared this back with the base already, and so they're gonna be like,
that's it. That's it.
Navarro's independent. Now the Mandalorians are there, so they must be part of the Empire because they broke Moff Gideon out, and so we've got to eradicate them. Like, it's
I, I,
not
I
not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I think Tiva's gonna be like, This is a setup." I know these guys, and I know that they wouldn't do this for any reason, but I think now that he's broadcasted out, I think that's gonna be the
It's too
perception.
late. Right?
Yeah,
Exactly.
people are gonna
Exactly.
believe that they're up to no good.
Yep. So we'll see what happens, but that was a fantastic episode. I think it was. It's ironic. That one was the best, had the highest score on IMDb. I think it was like
Hmm,
8.4 stars out of 10 or something. But
okay.
let's get into the next episode, which ironically was the lowest rated of the season
Of the whole season so far?
so far. Yeah.
Okay, wow.
In the sixes. So just interesting. We'll get into it all, but this one's called Guns for Hire. Um, it's an interesting episode. I mean, we start off with uh, the rogue, not rogue, but the
Rouge.
stop it. Um, the Mandalorians that are led by Axe Woves used to be led by Bo-Katan, the
Yep,
fleet,
yep.
uh, going and picking up a Mon Calamari on a Quarren ship, and it's an interesting scene.
Yeah,
My wife looked at me and was like, "Okay, that was weird."
it was weird. So speaking of Zeb, Do you think we're going to see those guys again? Like, it seems like they put a lot of effort into, like, is this just Axe and Company, their story?
I
Or are
think this was more just to share, like, okay, here's what Axe Woves and the group have been doing and reintroducing them. That's more what I thought it was about, but maybe
maybe, I don't
we'll
know.
see.
I was left wondering. But yeah, a little bit of an odd scene, but some really cool, I think, visual effects and visual storytelling. I really
Yeah,
like the tank kind of coming down that the
yeah,
captain of the ship was in. That was kind of cool to see. Um, and it was interesting to see the Mandalorians riding around in an Imperial cruiser like that. That was kind of cool
yeah,
too.
yeah. We are honorable. It just takes a few credits. Is
Yeah.
what they say.
Yep.
Um, yeah, it was a really fun way to introduce them back. But we end up spending most of our time on a planet called Plaisir 15.
Hmm.
Uh, keeping up with the French, Plaisir. It looked I actually thought it was Takadana at first when they got there. I was like, "That looks like Takadana."
Oh, yeah,
On
yeah,
the,
yeah.
if you just look at the surface of the planet. Um, and then once they zoomed in, it's a weird place. They've got, like, this big bubble that they live in, just like Mandalore.
Hmm.
So, did you feel like there are any ties that to Mandalore or that they were purposely going for or no?
I did not pick up on that,
Okay.
because to me it felt like Plaisir 15 just felt fake, felt totally manufactured, um,
Mm,
and it felt like more like a theme park than any type of real life. And it maybe had some more parallels in my mind to like a Canto Bite, where
mm.
people aren't working all day long. People are just having a good time, it seems like.
Well, plaisir, pleasure, right? They're just there kicking back. The droids do all the work. They do nothing. They enjoy the arts just like
It's like
uh
a whole planet of aristocrats who have nothing to
pretty
worry
much.
about.
Right. It looks like a great place, but under the surface there feels like there might be something else going on. And we'll
Yes.
get to some of this. So,
Yep.
um we start with a few cameos.
Yeah.
Lizzo and
Hmm.
Jack Black.
Yeah.
Which I mean, as soon as they opened the door and I saw across the table, I was like, "I know who that is. That's Jack Black. What is
Isn't
he
that
doing
wild?
here?"
That's one of the things that so we knew that what's his name was going to be in it, because there's a little bit of a
Christopher Lloyd?
Chris. Yeah, I think they mentioned,
Yeah.
I think last year that Christopher Lloyd was going to be in it. We didn't know who he was going to play or whatever.
Right.
So not that surprised to see him. Very surprised to see Jack Black and Lizzo. Did not expect them at all.
I actually
Um,
didn't know who Lizzo was before this. I will be
oh really?
honest.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think she's terrific.
Yeah.
Um, Real quick, a take that I saw on Reddit that I actually really liked about
Mm.
Jack Black. So it seems like Captain, it's Captain, right?
Yeah.
Captain Bombardier. Uh,
Bombardier.
it seems like a sweet, lovable guy, right?
Seems like it.
Exactly. So somebody was like,
Mhm.
who would get you to let your guard down more than a Jack Black?
Mhm.
Like, you see Jack Black and you're just like, this will be fun. But wouldn't it be funny if he was somehow still working for the Empire, connected to them in some way for his own benefit, and
Yeah.
maybe setting them up or something?
So I don't think it's an accident that we're getting introduced to the likes of Elia Kane and him and all these reformed empire
And
people.
he's got the big button
He's
right
got the
here.
button. He's
Yep.
he's he's wearing the same button that she's wearing. I mean, it's the button of the amnesty program, right?
Yep.
But so it's not everybody in it that are probably bad or anything, but
No,
obviously
no.
they're forced to all wear it. So like they have to give off like I am reformed empire here.
Mhm. Mhm.
But there's even this very interesting. I mean, we're jumping ahead here, but Hellgate, who is the character that Christopher Lloyd plays, and we
Yep.
end up learning a little bit about him. But he says to him at the end, he's like, "This place is unrecognizable since he arrived," and pointing at the captain of Bombardier. He blames the captain for making the planet a worse place to live, a worse place somewhere where the droids are taking care of you. Like what's so bad about it? So he obviously seems to think that there's something bad,
Yep.
and Jack Black in his Jack Black way, he just brushes it off like I knew you didn't like me, you know. And so yeah, you're wondering, like, is this love with Lizzo fake? It's
Well,
I feel the same way, is what I'm saying.
he seems to have inherited like his authority based on his marriage to her, right? It's her
Yes.
family
Yes.
who had
She's the Duchess.
she's the Duchess. And so he's married into that family and he gets to get all the benefits that go with that. But the first go around, I was like, oh, Jack Black is the best. He's so funny, whatever. And then the
Mhm.
second time around, I'm like, you're up to something.
That's exactly what I had. So, I'll admit, I watched this the first time and I went, "Not my favorite episode," but I watched it a second time and I went, there's something here. There's
Yeah,
some good here," and I feel like
for
we're gonna
sure.
like it a lot more after, a couple of rewatches, after we know a little bit more of the story.
Yeah.
So, um, so that's really interesting. We talking about Jack Black. That was one area I wanted to go. Um, we go in a lot of different directions. I mean, we go to Hellgate and meet him.
We go
We've
to a bar for droids.
a bar for droids. We
The
get battle
Resistor.
droids.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot in this that's very nostalgic.
We get Din talking the talk with the Ugnaughts.
Yeah, yeah, it's a huge callback.
Yep.
Going back to Quill and everything you learned from him and
Hmm.
speaking to them in a way that is at their level and that they respect and appreciate.
Yep.
It was
Very interesting to see that.
it was also interesting to see because everyone's been saying like, "Oh, he's been put in the back seat and stuff like that." This is very much a good cop, bad cop
Yep.
episode, and
Yep.
we see in some moments good cop was a better choice, in some
Yeah.
moments bad cop is a better choice.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right, so I feel like both Bo Katan and Din get their time to shine in this
I
episode.
agree. And I think it shows what a good team they are and how well they play off and
Yes.
complement one another. Different strengths, different approaches work great together.
I Alright, I'm not rooting for a love story here or anything like
Oh
this.
my gosh, here we go.
I'm not, okay? But at the same
What did
time,
the kids say on Twitter? Who do you
I don't know.
ship?
Ship? Yeah, I'm
Do
not
you
shipping these
ship
2.
Bo-Katan and Din?
No, let me clarify.
Wait, hang on a second.
They
No, I'll
just make
clarify
s
for you.
I'm not shipping them. They just make a great partnership,
Well,
and I
you
just
know, you
hope it's like a duo at the end of the day, like leading Mandalore, and it's the 2 of them. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. I was just trying to figure out when you start your Twitter account that just ships Bo-Katan and and Din Djarin.
What do I
y-
call it?
What do you call them as a couple? You know how like
Mm,
uh, Jennifer
Din
Lopez,
Katan?
Din Katan,
uh,
Bo Jarin,
Bojar no, I was trying to go with I don't know, I didn't want it to sound like she
Bojin
was taking his
Kachartan.
last name. I was like, "She's got the better last name." What? Bojakartan? Is that what you said?
Nope, but let's go with Bojakartan.
I didn't hear what you said.
You'll be able to find us on Twitter at Bojakartan.
Oh.
Looking for moots. Din and Bo, people who ship Din and Bo only.
There's gotta be a lot out there that are shipping them right now, not just well,
Yeah,
I'm not, but, like,
you're not. No, I'm messing around. Let's cut this part out. No, let's leave it in.
heck no, this is staying. I own the editing. I am keeping this.
All right,
But come on, man. Don't they make,
but
like, a great partnership?
awesome team. Awesome
Yes.
team.
Yeah.
Totally.
Cop team, raising little Grogu team,
Yep.
all the teams,
Yeah.
running Mandalore team.
I can't disagree.
I think they would do great.
I can't disagree. And the other thing that I think they do really well is Din never really wanted the dark saber. He didn't want to
No.
wield the dark saber and have all the stuff that goes with it.
Right.
So I think they're deferential to one another in the right ways. Like
Mhm.
Bo-Katan's the right person. So Din finds a way to tell Axe Woves and everybody else the story that then makes it make sense for her to wield the dark saber.
Mhm.
Um, and there's no ego in it, and it seems like they have no ego with one another. Um, So yeah, I'm totally on board with the idea of them.
You're shipping them now too.
Yeah,
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 you are. Look
yeah,
at that. No, but, I'm gonna go back to the, like, the good cop, bad cop, like, this
yeah.
you know what? I'm watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine right now, and so this feels very much like a Jake and Amy kinda thing.
Yep, yep, yep.
Maybe there's no
I just started
romantic
watching
tie.
that.
Yeah, see, it's great. You've seen it before though, right?
No, 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 no.
Never?
Just started.
Oh, man, where are
Yeah,
you?
like in the first season.
Oh, man, you got a lot of good stuff to get yeah, okay. Um, Pontiac Bandit is great, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay,
Uh
I will buckle up.
that's just the best stuff in that show. Anyway, no, but Jake and Amy, they just make a great like pair duo, you know, and there doesn't have to be a romantic thing. There can if you want, but they could just go about solving crimes and rebuilding Mandalore together and raising Grogu, and I'd be cool with that.
Yeah, agreed.
So anyway, I'm getting really off. There's a it's just okay. We'll kind of skip
Well,
past all the, like,
hang on.
what happens in between, but what do you wanna say?
I was going to go back to Hellgate for a second.
Sure.
Um,
That's where
so
I was
he.
going.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, go ahead. Don't let me step on your
No, I
toes.
was gonna say, let's get to, like we find out that Hellgate is behind all the mischief with the droids,
Yeah.
and we learn a few things, that he is separatist,
Mm-hmm.
and that he starts getting into a monologue and talking about how Count Dooku was the smartest man alive, and he was cut short at his prime by the Jedi. So, some really interesting which we all know isn't true. Well, kinda true.
Mm-hmm.
Kinda true. Um, but it was just an interesting scene. Just like, okay, we've got separatists back, not just battle droids, but a separatist that are controlling the battle droids.
Yeah.
So, what did you make of all that?
So didn't see it coming. It's a bit surprising to be like sort of cuffed and then walked up to the Duchess and for him to spit out this whole story. And then says this whole thing. Like I think when you consider where his loyalties really are, he says this whole thing about how he hopes that maybe one day he can sort of earn his way back into her service.
Yeah.
And I thought
Hmm.
that was interesting because it made me think about like, well, what were some of his motivations maybe beyond what he said? Like, was he sort of booby trapping the world in some way to disrupt Captain Bombardier's authority over it? Was he
Yeah.
trying to ruin the party for Jack Black? Um, I don't know. I don't think
Yeah.
we'll actually see
Did
Christopher
he
Lloyd
had
again.
maybe not, yeah. But did he have a altruistic motive or
Was he trying to
something like
do the
that?
right thing
Yeah.
and kind of took the
Not for the
fall for it?
separatists.
Not for the separatists, for the good of the Duchess, her family, the world, the people that live
Yeah.
there. Um, and he did it, and the only he only had access to certain things, and one of the ways he could do that was to cause some issues with the droids and maybe wake people up a little bit. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just second view around, like I sort of question his motives. Like, is he he's saying one thing, but does he mean another?
Yeah. Yeah. I think time will tell. Maybe we haven't seen the end of him. Um, again, I like that they're connecting it to all these different eras of Star Wars at once,
Yep.
right? So,
Yeah,
there's a lot of fun to do with that. Um,
that's a good
but
point.
yeah, I think that his character and he's done something pretty crappy here. Like
Oh
he
yeah.
was about to turn the whole entire fleet of droids against the people and destroy them. So that's not really redemptive, right?
No,
Like
no.
that he was
That's hard to come back
willing
from
to
too.
yeah, he was willing to go a pretty far away to emphasize his point there.
Mhm.
So yeah, I don't know. We'll find out, but in any case, it just ended up being a really interesting story. I guess some people will look back and see how much of it was, I don't want to say filler, but just a mean to get to an end, which
Yeah.
was meet the Mandalorians.
Yeah.
And that all of that did not disappoint.
No, not at
Bo-Katan
all.
facing off with Axe-Woves, trying to get the fleet back. I mean, this is what the armor had sent her off to do, to get them back and to join them with
Yeah.
the rest of the Mandalorians, the Zealots, as they were calling them.
Yeah.
And I think you and I talked about this, so we'll go here. I found it really interesting that um, first of all, it was a great, well choreographed scene with Bo
Yeah.
and Axe fighting. Um, I found it really interesting. Two things. One, the way that they work to get the events of the Mines of Mandalore and Din losing to that
Hmm.
creature to
Hmm.
then get Bo-Katan the lights or the dark saber.
Hmm.
Um, so we can talk about that, which was fascinating. But there's also the fact that Bo-Katan, or no, sorry, Axe Woves is calling, uh, the Mandalorian Din and the covert that he's part of, zealots. They're saying
Hmm.
he's not a Mandalorian. They're being very pompous and stuff. Um, and then as soon as he asked them, like, "Hey, if I say that my captor got the dark saber, and then she got the dark saber from my captor, and it's right, like, does that work?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that works."
Yeah. Right.
um,
Right away, they're like, "Well, yeah. Well, those are the rules.
yeah,
So
those are
yeah,
the
we're
rules.
good."
They're like, "Wait a minute, so
Yeah.
you're okay with some of the way,
Yeah.
but not those parts of the way." Like, you're losing me, guys.
So
Like,
I guess I was thinking about that. I guess some things are just sacred. And maybe to them, some of the rituals of like you don't take your helmet off, like that's not sacred. But like, there's just that one dark saber, and when it changes hands, that's a sacred thing, and so we
yeah.
follow that. But
Well, this
um,
goes back to the armorer's point. It's like some of us have strayed from the way.
yeah,
And I think what she's saying is like in some ways we have too. Like we might be trying as hard as we can to follow the
yeah,
way, but what we've done in trying to like be so rigid about this is that we've alienated ourselves from other Mandalorians. We're not united.
great, yeah, that's a great way to put it.
So I think she sees the error in her ways just as much, and maybe
Oh
that's
man,
what they're seeing
this
too.
show's so good. I can't believe that people are not giving the show good reviews.
I mean, they're still liking it. This
They
is the
still
only
like it,
episode that didn't get the greatest. But you know what? Everyone's allowed to like and not like their own things. But hey,
totally.
we're over here loving it. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but anyway, what did you make of all this? That's everything I've made of it.
No, I think you nailed it. I don't think I can say it really any better. It just feels like the prophecy continues to be fulfilled in some ways. Um, and yeah, I'd love to see what else happens here on Plays Your 15 because I feel like we're not necessarily done with some of the characters on it,
Yeah,
and I feel like Captain Bombardier is up to no good.
I think he's part. He's lump him in with Elia Kane.
Yep,
There's something afoot here.
there's something afoot.
Yeah. Um, But we're gonna be really interesting to see how all of these Mandalorians come together, if they come together now under Bo-Katan. But the
Yep,
way they played it is like Bo is the leader now,
yep,
and she's got her crew back. She
yep.
beat Axe, and now she actually has the dark saber. And frankly, the whole way that they tied it in and how she got it, like by destroying or defeating Din's captor,
I had not thought of that.
that that that's another reason why I don't watch the intros anymore. Because the second watch, I did watch it, and they
Mhm.
spoiled it all at the beginning. I don't watch
Oh
intros anymore
man.
because of that.
Mm,
So I'm glad I've made that rule for myself.
yeah.
But anyway,
Yep. Maybe you're one of the people who was at Star Wars Celebration. You got to see the next episode. We have not yet. Um,
luckies.
so lucky. And when I woke up this morning, the first thing I did, like bleary eyed, like just barely awake, I picked up my phone and I opened up the Disney Plus app to see if they had posted that episode overnight.
Yeah, and
And
they didn't.
alas, they have not. But maybe you're one of the lucky people who knows what happens next. We don't, but we'll be back in 2 weeks to talk about it.
I will say it. I'm happy to see that most people that were there are keeping quiet about it.
Yeah,
And
that's a good thing. And I remember
right,
when Chris and everybody else went and they got to see what was the first episode of Obi-Wan
yeah, they
or
did.
something. And I asked him like, "Did you guys have to sign anything?" And he said, "No. Like
They just
it's
showed
just
you the episode. That's it. I
they
mean, it
show you the
wasn't like
episode, they ask you not to spoil it for anybody."
yeah, and I think, but those a lot of those fans they get it.
Yeah.
They're not the type
They
that would
wouldn't
then
want it
leave.
to yeah, they wouldn't want it to be spoiled for them. So
Right,
they're not doing it to anybody else.
exactly. They understand that not everybody gets to go, so
Yeah.
it's good to see. No, there's only one other question that I wanted to ask you to
Okay.
close up this episode.
Yeah.
Have our feelings on Bo-Katan changed?
Yes.
We watched a few episodes and went, "This doesn't feel genuine. No, she can't be turning the page that quickly. No, this she's still got to be like something's up her sleeve, right?" Are we feeling that way anymore?
Not anymore. I think something that happened on Mandalore has fundamentally changed her. I feel like
Yes.
she's come around, and she's not the same person that went into the mines. I think she's had a genuine change of heart.
I mean, when she was hiding the mythosaur from Din, we
Yeah.
were all like, "Oh, she's gonna use this to like pull one fast over him." And
Yeah,
then
yeah,
as you
yeah.
watch it, you're like, "No, she was just deeply processing everything and was so
Yeah.
shook by this experience that she didn't know what to do about it."
Yeah.
And she was like, "Wait a minute." She was more thinking like, "Wait a minute. If he didn't see this creature and I did, what does that mean?"
Yeah.
And so I'm processing the previous episodes very differently now. There's only 2 more left.
Yep.
There's a lot that can happen. Maybe she does pull a fast one over us still, and we've really been duped, but
It could be. I doubt it though.
I'm doubting it at this point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
But we're gonna find out, and we'll be back
yes.
to report our thoughts on all of it.
Yes, we will. Until then, you can find us at the Star Bros Podcast on
Mm-hmm.
Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
You can email us at the Star Bros Podcast at gmail.com.
Yep.
When did I start doing this? I don't know why, but I
Go
started
ahead, keep
doing
going.
this. And you can find us on Facebook too.
Yep.
Or you can go and find Jan at his address, and it is 1234. Oh, obviously that's not right.
You can listen to, if you're watching us on the Baraxium YouTube channel, you can listen to us on any of these little things below. Like
Yeah.
this is your
Wherever you
Spotify
find us.
thingy.
Yeah.
I don't know what this one is.
I can't reach over to your camera to be able to show the rest. Yeah, actually, I'm not sure. YouTube and all this others.
Yeah.
Yes, you can find us on YouTube on the Broaxium channel. So
Yes.
make sure to check us out there. Any last words on your end?
No, just thank you everybody for listening. We know that there's a lot of good Star Wars content out there, and we know that there's a lot of good news these days, and so we're sort of flooded with all that great stuff. But if for whatever reason you decide to stop by our show and you enjoyed it, we just wanted to say thank you. We
Yes.
really appreciate you checking us out. And we hope that you stick around for the next one. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys.
That's so cute. I'm going to challenge you.
Okay.
You have to say it's your turn to wrap up, and you have to wrap up as if you are this guy.
Ron Swanson.
Yep. Try it. You have to say our wrap up, and you have to say it as Ron Swanson would say it. I'm glad that you recognized who that was.
I think he would just do this. I think he would just go, "It's a wrap."
That's it. That's the outro. It's a wrap, guys. We're done.
Impressive. Most impressive. That's it.